you have other events that you've been working with as well?
Well, I want to make sure that I always keep this fun. And that is the one thing that when you start competing at the levels I'm competing at now, you see a lot of seriousness and a lot of stress, and where it suddenly gets to be almost overwhelmingly like a job and then some. And it's very important. I know how to focus. I know how to, really, really get to where I need to get to, but I still want it to be fun. So what I decided to do is bring in steeplechase this year.
Oh, nice.
So steeplechase, the 2000 steeplechase is, I will be doing my first one ever at the upcoming National Outdoor Championships in Spokane, Washington in less than 2 weeks. And
Wait a second. You're going to do the steeplechase for the first time at the National Championships?
Yes, I am. And I've never done a water jump. So this is going to be interesting because if I have it right, I do 23 jumps total, 4 of those being the water jump. And there's a lot of falling on your face that can happen. And the funny part is I've never done a hurdle in my life. Obviously, I never was on track. But as a 59-and-a-half-year-old, to start out as steeplechase, you got to be some sort of crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say I'm some sort of crazy, but that just is part of my adrenaline rush junkie, background.
Well, they'll say some of us endurance athletes, most of us if you're an endurance athlete, they call us crazy anyway. So,
Yeah.
So I've heard it before, so I'm going to ask you, what do they consider everything over a 400 in track?
Middle distance.
Distance. So you heard it
Middle
here, folks,
distance.
right? They call it middle distance,
Yes.
but it's distance.
Yeah.
No matter what,
Right,
it's
right.
distance.
Right.
So you could have the argument, folks out there, that and we're talking to someone who's almost 60, and she is talking about a quarter mile, everything over a quarter mile being distance. So for us, anything over a quarter mile is endurance. That's a type of endurance sport. I don't want to have people realize that or think that everything 5K and under is not considered endurance. It is. All of that is some sort of endurance. It's just picking and choosing your events, like Lynn has. So, where was I going to go with this? So as far as so that's what I wanted to say. So Lynn, here's where I was going to go with that. Sorry about that. So, as a coach, I always dictated. Everybody's got their own type of fun, right? I consider fun 70.3s and long runs. You consider fun being on the track. But you also mentioned that there's like stress and this. But isn't the added stress that you put on yourself, isn't that sometimes fun?
Yes, it is.
I mean, because you're not getting paid for any of this.
No, I'm not getting paid.
There's no purses or anything like that at the end.
No.
First.
Right.
It's typically your inner desire to hit the podium.
And I want to say that what this has sparked in me is I've always been health conscious. And I've always felt that you have one body, you can make it what you want to make it. It's all up to you. So to me, this is because I found something that I'm passionate about, that I thoroughly enjoy every time I step foot on that track or train for it, for a goal. I have goals, and I think goals are important. That it just inspires me to see where I can take this with my own body. It's really you against you in the end. And it is not where I beat, a competitor, because I'm racing against, for instance, I'm at the top of my age division. And that's why my American record was so unusual, because you never do, it's unheard of that you hit an American record, that you break an American record at the top of the age division. It's always the young ones coming in, these 55-year-olds being a 55 to 59-year-old age division. I am the 59-and-a-half-year-old. I'm as old as you can get to break this age,
Wow.
And it's not done. In fact, I don't know that it's ever been done at 59-and-a-half in this particular age division. So I am pleased that I could prove that it's not just a 55-year-old that can do this. And I'm planning on hopefully doing maybe one more, at least, if not 2 more, of the American records before I hit age 60.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned goals. So what are your current goals?
You don't want to jinx yourself. And by saying it out loud, I'm just going to say I'm going for more records.
Okay.
Records to me right now seem to have a little more weight than a gold medal. I have, when you've been running this like I've been running it, where you go now basically over the world too with racing, you get a lot of medals, and medals are great, but what do you do with them? I have a lot of medals. So I'm honored to place when I place, but I want those records. That's what I want.
So there you go. So where a lot of my people, which is fine, is absolutely are there to finish, maybe finish a little bit better than they did before. You're actually going for that American record.
And then world record.
And and the world record. So
yes.
But that's your fun.
Yes.
That's your fun. And then you can hear it in your voice when you talk about going for the American records, that's what's fun.
Yeah.
So let's step back a little bit. What's a typical day like for you? From wake up to go to sleep, what is a typical day?
It's funny because it's so different now in this lifestyle that I've chosen, and I absolutely love it, but it's kind of crazy when someone else listens to it. For 3 days a week, which includes one of them being today, I get up at 3:30 in the morning, and the reason for that, I have to leave my house by 4:40 in the morning, and I like my wake-up time like anybody else does, with a cup of coffee and some type of breakfast, but I've got 3 dogs that have to have their morning wake-up time too. So to get out the door, it is a 4:40 a.m. start. And then for instance, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go just like you do, Brad. I'm out here with John Nolan and his group training, which is very beneficial. We train our core. We train parts of the body that if I didn't have the strength, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So that's my Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then from there, like right from here, I'm going to swim. And after swimming, I'll do a run, depending on the weather. And then I've got a meeting with my sponsor, New Balance Tampa, which is a huge, huge piece of my life. And then from there, I'm going to practice my steeplechase. So I've got to do some jumping today too. So there'll be swimming, running, jumping, and then I think around, and one of the things that is so important with an elite athlete is nutrition. And you've got to have time. You've got to build in time. I must build in time every single day to make sure I've got the nutrition coming in when it needs to. My recovery drink, my proteins. You can't just say I don't have time and grab the protein bar. So I eat my beets, my bison, all the things that are required to keep up what I need to do with this. So my day doesn't end until probably 2 to 3 p.m. And then, of course, I have home stuff, just like everybody does. And I go to bed again by 7:30 to 8 p.m. Wow. So that's my day.
Wow. One of the questions I had prepared was, do you consider this a hobby or a lifestyle? I think you just basically answered that question for me. So, wow, that's dedication right there. But as you heard, you started. I mean, it was this slow start to just a treadmill in front of the television to now you've graduated into this where it's pretty much, what your life is all about. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's amazing. But it's that progression that a lot of my audience here is more interested in. So speaking of that, what advice would you give to someone over 40 that maybe is just coming off the couch and just getting started?
I would say, you definitely, as a master's, have to recognize that our bodies aren't what they were when we were 20.
No, isn't that the truth?
And, as much as I am passionate about this running fast and running in general, and I wanted to hit every single race I could find, you have to remember that you can break. And you've got to recognize when you've got aches and pains that you need to make sure they're not something more serious. In my first year of this track, passion that I got involved with, I did fracture my talus because I raced too much, and So what I ended up having to do was I went on the Alter G. 1 week after I found I had a fracture in the talus, and I continued running, but with, the weight taken off. But you've got to recognize that you will break. Everybody will break. And everybody does have injuries. And you just need to heal. Heal and let the time that it takes to heal properly, and then you can get back out. Because if you don't heal right, you're not going to be running again. You're going to ruin what you have suddenly found that you love to do.
Okay, so real quick, just let's step back for a minute, just for everybody else. What is the talus?
I'm sorry. Talus fracture is your ankle area.
Okay.
And the talus fracture is something that was a stress fracture because I was doing too much racing and running. Okay. And I was doing sometimes 2 races in a weekend.
Oh,
and
so you're talking about it's kind of an overuse injury.
Yeah, it was, a stress fracture. So, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to admit, folks, that this is one point that Lynn and I don't agree on, is the fact that you will get injured. You will get injured if you're, like she said, we have to learn from people's mistakes. She told you, right? She raced too much. She needs to pull back, especially sometimes in our older age group. I tend to not believe that you need to get injured or you always will get injured. Definitely if you don't follow prescribed steps. But that's one of the reasons maybe sometimes you get a coach. She went ahead and she got into this master's. She had a track coach, probably not, and you have to forgive me or correct me, but somebody that was have your plan like every single day.
No, we did not have a relationship like that. And so I agree with you, Brad. You don't have to get injured. So it was a misstatement.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, but the reason, I guess, because I was naive. I was naive about running. I had no experience. I got in there and I went hog wild, and it was not my coach. It was a coach for a group. So he was not focused on me and what I was doing. He had no responsibility in saying you were doing too much. Like a real coach where you hire them would be one-on-one and would be watching you and building a plan for you. I just went out and did everything I wanted to do, not realizing I was breakable. So unfortunately, it was my own fault on that, but I had no clue. I didn't know.
Well, yeah, and that wasn't your fault. It was You didn't know what you didn't know.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why we have these. That's why I try to have the podcast out there so we can educate everybody. So look, it turns out we don't disagree. That's great. A quick little anecdote. I was coaching at Fit to Run, and I was doing a 0 to 5K type thing.
Yeah.
And there was a guest speaker who was a master's track, like a master's more 5K, 10K, half marathon type person out there, and she was having a speech, and she said the same thing. And I had my whole group. I had 30 people in the audience of maybe 40 or 50.
Yeah.
And I said, and as soon as she said that, she says, "It's part of it. You're gonna get injured." I said, "I don't want you to listen to this." And I said, "Everybody get up." And I said, "We want to go ahead and start our workout," because I wasn't going to have them listen to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely there are risks for getting injured. And yes, you're going to be sore, and there's definitely a possibility that you will. But I think if you've got the right training and somebody behind you, your support system.
Totally agree with you on that.
So just wanted to put that out there real quick. So, what I really want to hear is, can you describe that record-breaking race from the beginning to the end, or just kind of give us a stage of how that experience was? I want the audience to kind of feel what that was like.
Well, I had to prepare my pacing. Pacing is so important when you're going for anything like a record, whether it be American record or world record. And I had to know what that pace felt like for every 100 meters to stay on track.
Wow.
And you can't take the energy when you're really going for a record like that to peek at your watch every 100 meter. You can do some point checks, maybe, obviously you're going to see the 400 each time you lap around, but I knew where I needed to be. I had memorized my numbers for the number I had to reach to hit the American record. I knew every 100 meters where I needed to be if I needed to do a spot check on my watch. So I felt good after seeing the first 200 meters. I did a spot check when I first started out. The anticipation, there's a lot of pressure. I have a lot of people who were believing in me, and you don't want to let them down. But you know, the biggest thing, you don't want to let yourself down. I wanted this so bad. I mean, it was just so important to me. I had done my homework. I had done everything that it took to get there. I was ready. I was so ready. So yeah, the first 200